Okay, I think we're live. And give people a minute to pop in here. Anyone, if you're joining now, why don't you drop in the chat there and let us know where you're joining from? I know last time we had people from all over the world. Juice is really trending in Ghana, Africa right now, by the way.
Mm.
Been getting lots
Yeah.
of interest about our machines from Ghana. Made a few sales to Ghana and talked to other people in the industry that say the same thing. So interested to see if we have anybody joining from Ghana today. I think we did last time.
Cool.
It's awesome.
That's amazing. How
Uh,
many was it hummingbirds? What did you sell to Ghana?
Someone from Ghana posted a picture of receiving their X1,
Mm,
and then yeah, we've sold a couple hummingbirds to Africa, so
cool.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's weird how it happens in different parts of the world at very different times.
Mm-hmm.
Like back when juice was really trending, it took off in the U.S. and it took off in Europe and then Australia, and then a year later it took off in Asia, and now it seems like it's taking off in some parts of Africa, which is cool.
Cool.
Um, so Katelin, how are things out there at Juice Co. LG? How's it going for you?
It's going great. We wrapped January. It was a great month. Great cleanse month. I think I mentioned last time we were on, we had great weather, which helped. And that continued, but now it's the full like analytical planning for spring and summer and feels like that's right around the corner. So we're in a bit of a rainy, kind of stormy for us week or two, but it hasn't slowed. Rough cold and flu season, so that's definitely keeping customers wanting to invest in their health and come in. So all positive.
Cool. Do you have any special recipes or anything planned for your? I almost said Thanksgiving, but for Valentine's Day.
Not for Thanksgiving now. Yes, we let me pull up
All right, can you do
our
me a favor? Can you just stand more in the middle? It's just you're kind of cut off because we have all three people on the screen.
All right, there
Yeah,
we
there
go.
you go. Perfect. Thanks.
we have a love potion, a red dragon, and a heartbeat shot. The love potion is a blood orange, like two orange varieties, including blood orange, apple, strawberry, lemon, and then we do vanilla in that one. So it kind of gives it this like really unique, very deep red color. The
Mm,
vanilla was that was the last year was the first year we used vanilla,
That's
and
awesome.
it's phenomenal in juice. I was a little skeptical, but it's good. And the heartbeat shot is just a little 2 ounce cranberry, pineapple, ginger, lemon, and beets, of course.
cool. Sounds
Yeah,
nice.
those are on shelves today. So
Great. All right, we've got some people joining here. We've got about 12 people on. I'm sure more will trickle in. So today we're going to focus mostly on operational stuff. I can pull up the agenda here. So I pulled some trending topics off our Goodnature Juicing Facebook group. And so a few I found they had a lot of comments or very engaging. One was, how do you find good employees? Another was based on interview questions and how much to pay for various positions. There's another one discussing like sharing profit or giving bonuses. One was asking about employee meals. You give employee meals, you give employee discounts, how often, how much, etc. One was on with prices rising, does anyone charge credit card processing fees? And then finally, handling canceled juice cleanse orders or no shows for pickup. So if someone orders like a 3-day juice cleanse or something and they don't show up or they cancel, how do you handle that without creating bad will with the customer, but also not just eating the cost of, you know, 18 bottles of juice? So we can get into that. And also, people in chat, feel free to jump in if you have any other questions that are today that are sort of based on more operational topics. Then that's what we're going to focus on today. So if you're struggling with something in your juice bar, whether it's with employees or training or um, with managers or managing the juice bar, anything sort of operational based, today would be a great day to ask. And we always love the engagement. Don't be shy. Get in there, ask a question. And also, before we get into that, I'll just give a quick update on Hummingbird since I get lots of questions about it every day. We are in full production mode now. We are building units every day. We are shipping multiple days per week. I mean, our target for production, we're trying to ramp up to 15 units a day this week that we're building. So things are really busy. And if you ordered in May or June, we plan on getting through the rest of those orders very soon, within the next 1 to 2 weeks, and then on to the orders after that. So, I mean, it's tough. Look, building physical products in the real world is tough, but we are doing it, ramping up production. We're staffed up. We have a bunch of new employees in their training this week, and we're running multiple shifts now, starting at 6 a.m. Like, we're in full production mode now.
Wow.
So, if you ordered, you will be receiving your machine soon. And it's really exciting. Lots of positive feedback about it. One customer said that she literally cried while she was using it because she's used every juicer known to man, and she
Mm,
finally found one that she loves and felt like it was worth her time. That was great feedback. She said she made 5 gallons of green juice in her first batch, and she was
Awesome.
literally crying.
that's
Um,
great.
but yeah, it's been nothing but positive feedback, which is great because when you're inventing a product and designing it, you tend to fall in love with it. And then there's always a question in the back of your mind, like, do I just like this because I invented this thing, or is it actually great? So far, it seems like customers feel the same way. So it's so exciting. And again, thanks to anyone who ordered all the way back in May or June and still hasn't gotten their machine. But we have shipped a bunch now, and we're shipping a bunch more every week. So thank you for being part of the Good Nature family. Okay, moving on. And also, if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to drop it in chat there. So I guess we'll just tackle these in order. Let me just find the actual question here. So finding good employees for a juice bar. Let me find the actual question. Okay. This one's posted by Michelle in the Facebook group. What is the secret to finding an employee who really likes and wants to work in the juice smoothie bar and on the juice machine? Is it me, or is that one of the biggest struggles? I think a lot of people do not realize when they start this type of work that it's actually very hard manual labor, physically demanding, and you really do have to have attention to detail. Do any of you have any special secrets? Please don't say pay scale because I've adjusted that to be competitive for our area and field. Most of you employees, for those that do you find it easier to have more part timers, a couple full timers? High school kids are great for extra summer help, but are not year round, long term dependable. So, Katelin, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, it's not just her. This is one of the hardest things. Absolutely. Um, there's a lot of ways you could go on this. It's probably we could talk well, we are going to talk bulk of today about this. I'm passionate about this because it is one of the harder things operationally to nail down. I think we're really passionate as founders and creators of these concepts about the product. But we almost equally need to be as passionate about our team because that's who's, making the product and helping us employ this, uh, fantastic operation to our community. So we've done a variety of things over the years. I've absolutely failed in many ways, so don't feel like you're alone. And I am sure I'll continue to fail, but I think it's really important to learn uh, the ins and outs and then learn from our failures. So for me, I find that it's absolutely possible to find like-minded employees, and that's where kind of the best employees come from. Those that believe in the product or have worked in the industry in some capacity. I think it's really important to set expectations up front of the manual labor component. I actually do like a phone call first to vet any kind of candidates that come across. And then we bring them in store. So I always do a phone call, and I can usually tell on that phone call now at this point if there's any type of viability, whether they're going to be part time, full time, whatever it is, if they're going to work. And I ask really pointed questions. Are you just looking for a paycheck, or what interested you? Why are you applying to work here? Um, and then from there, many other questions. But I think something that we do at JuiceCo that helps us a lot is shadow shifts. So whether they're working front of house, back of house, dishwasher, wherever they're at, they work a 2-hour shadow shift as part of the interview process. That's usually like the secondary process. And it's paid. I pay them whether I hire them or not because I respect everybody's time. And in that shadow shift, we give them they're always alongside a manager. They're there during busy times. We just throw them into the fire to see how they do. And it helps us see them in the field and really observe, what they're going to be like. And I tell them up front, we're going to be looking to see how fast you move your body. We're going to look to see how you take feedback. It's okay that you've never used a commercial mop or you've never mopped a floor, but there are things that you can do that, might put you in a good position to be a good candidate to work here. And then just how they overall mesh with the team. So I find those shadow shifts to be critical and makes it a little bit harder to turn down a candidate if it's not going to work. But it really has helped us vet through people that we may have hired previously, and we get to see them kind of in field and live.
Yeah, that really doesn't just help out you to figure out if that's a good employee, but also if they're a good match to work there.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think that's so important to actually come in for a paid shift. Uh, that free day of working is a little questionable. It happens a lot, but I definitely recommend doing a paid
Hmm.
kind of interview if they pass to that point.
Hmm.
But definitely to find good employees, I think a lot of times people are a little bit too dependent on their experience or their prior
Hmm.
experience when it's not that important for finding a juicer that previously worked as a juicer. That is like a needle in the haystack for a lot of
So
areas.
hard.
So
Yeah.
it's I don't rely on experience at all. Like minimal to no experience is totally fine. In fact, in some cases, it's a hindrance if it's like
Hmm.
I worked as a juicer for 10 years. I come in and everything you're showing them, they're like, this is how we used to do it. This is how we used to
Hmm.
do it. And then you have to kind of worry about when you leave, are they going to go back to producing it that previous way versus your way that you want to have it done? There's a lot of ways to juice, and all those little things kind of add up to a different product than what you want to put out. So
Yep.
I think definitely lower the expectations on the previous skill, or maybe if you're not comfortable on certain aspects like the kitchen, maybe go ahead and find one solid person that has that experience and kind of rely on them a little bit. But or for front of the house organizing, scheduling, stuff like that, maybe try to find a higher up position. I know we're going to talk about kind of pay scales, but maybe go out and find someone a little more skilled so you can kind of rely on them initially to find out what they used and then implement and see if it works for something you want for your operation.
Hmm.
But to find employees, it's really difficult. I think lower the expectations initially. You have to go and find people that are definitely have great attitudes. That's definitely number one over skill for sure. Great attitudes and kind of use every outlet possible. There's like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Monster, LinkedIn, use all those. If you have solid employees, ask them if they have someone that's looking for a job, preferably not a family member. If it is, that's fine because that can get a little tricky. But a lot of times, if you have a solid employee, they could probably refer you at least one or more, one or two.
Um, so what do you guys think about the concept? Like, just look for somebody that wants to do a good job and don't focus so much on if they like using a juicer. Because I mean, we've struggled with that at Goodnature too. We're like, oh, every employee we hire will love juicing and love, making juice and being healthy and all this stuff. But then in the end, you're like, I just want to find someone that wants to work hard and do a good job. Like it doesn't matter so much, particularly what their exact interests are. Um, if they just want to work hard and do a good job, and you can get them excited about your mission.
I think that passion doesn't always have to be there. They have to be open to it. And like juice, smoothies, the products that you put out is extremely important. If they're disgusted by any of that products, it definitely can't bring them on. But I think if they're into it, they're willing to try it, you can win them over eventually. You're not going to get everyone that's so passionate about juicing. Just if they're open to it, that lifestyle, uh, for sure, you can go and bring them on, and they'll give you your honest feedback. It's a great opportunity to test out juices and smoothies for someone that might not be that into it. And if they like it, then a good chance the people in that industry or passionate about it will like it as well.
Caitlin, Michelle, the one that asked the question in Facebook, is actually in the chat right now. She
Mm.
asked you, can you define some more specific things that you have them do during a shadow shift?
Yeah, so of course you'd want to align it towards what you were hiring them for. For us, we have very specific roles at this point in our like org chart that we're hiring. So I know if it's either my juice operator or a smoothie maker or a retail kind of front of house person. So I try to be really specific. But I recognize there's a lot of when we started that certainly I didn't have a juice operator. So like only, myself and one other person could operate that equipment or X1. So I would say a lot of good pre-planning. I find even like a little short checklist works really well. That way, if anybody else is helping to jump in, you can say, so and so is working on X right now, and you know what they're working on. I would say tasks that you would hope that they'd be completing when they're working for you. So for us, it's like a lot of chopping bananas, but then knowing that they're going to jump in and make a smoothie if a ticket comes on the line. We let them observe a couple of those smoothies being made, and then we do let them jump in if we feel like they're ready to do so, so we can observe that. I also give them really both in the shadow shifts, I guess more specifically if they're hired, but setting expectations of how long a test should take. So you're not sitting back as a manager or owner and you're like, oh my gosh, they're taking an hour and this usually takes me 10 minutes. Tell them, like, give them a time limit. If you're for us, there someone will sticker bottles. I'll say that should like takes me 2 minutes and 50 seconds to sticker a box of our bottles. I know that it's not going to take everybody that amount of time, so give them a realistic like this task should take you around 10 minutes. Do the best you can. We'll check in 10 minutes. So I love an expectation. I love giving those things. It gives really good like goals and pinpoints, so that nobody is frustrated or feeling failed. That's what I like to do.
They love to see it too. It's
Hmm.
a lot of times it's hiring a high schooler there. It might be their first job. I do a lot of in-person training where it's kind of all new staff going through policies, recipes, all this stuff. And there's a couple things that really stand out for me. Like if I am showing them how to juice, I go through the process, and then the next batch, they're volunteering to jump in and start putting the produce in and handling the tasks. That's a great sign. I've gone to places where I've gone through 4 to 5 recipes, have them jump in and not into it at all. That's a red
Hmm.
flag. If you're making juice and smoothies and you're having them try it, if there's certain things like I don't want to try it at all, that's a red flag for me as well. At least try once as long as they're not allergic to it. There's a lot of things you can learn from that first few days of either initial hiring or having those people shadow for that day. You learn so much from that.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so let's go into. I know we touched on interview questions a little bit. Caitlin, do you have anything else to add about maybe what your favorite interview questions are?
Yeah, I think this goes back to what you were saying, Charlie, about someone maybe not loving juice as the specific product, and wanting them to be so passionate about that specific thing. But those things I find I can teach, or as Ari mentioned, they will fall in love with as they get integrated into your operation. What's very hard to teach is like focus, dedication, hard work, moving your body quickly, being alert, being able to perceive what needs to be done without being told. Like those things are just being purely motivated as an individual. It's very hard to train that. So I always say, like, if you can exhibit these 5 top things, I can teach you everything else of how to do. I can teach you, you'll learn. So I like to ask a little more pointed questions around what motivates them. What do they do if they're bored and what type of individual are you in that space? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are you looking forward most to? What excites you about being here on our team? What are you worried about? Yeah, a lot of questions around what motivates you, because I think knowing some people love over communication, some people don't like to be micromanaged. So, everybody needs to be managed differently. So it's, I think, really important to get to know those individuals, what makes them tick, what bothers them, and then as a manager, it's our job to kind of adapt to that slightly within reason. But yeah, I like those more personal questions, and it's not as much industry food related as a whole.
But what are the specific questions where you figure that out? Because you can't just ask someone like, "Hey, do you work hard?" They're like, "Yeah, I work really hard." But like, what kind of
I just
questions
say
do you
like
ask?
what yeah, like what motivates you? What in your previous jobs, what did you hate doing the most? Did you hate taking out the trash? Did you hate
Hmm.
mopping the floor? What were your dislikes? Why did you quit your last job, or why did they fire you? Why did you leave? All those things start to come up. And yes, people can of course tell the truth or choose not to tell the truth, but if you're having a sit down, eyeball to eyeball conversation, I feel usually you can tell if they're being truthful. And then it really comes out in that shadow shift. I can see like, oh, this is definitely truthful, or this person was probably just telling me what I wanted to hear. So yeah, okay, specific questions. Strengths and weaknesses, I know sounds basic, but that stumps people a lot. They
Hmm.
both sides. They're like, strengths feels like I'm bragging a little bit. Weaknesses feels like I'm coming down on myself too hard. So that's a really basic, probably across every industry question that you'd ask in an interview. I like the question about what motivates you. I love asking like, what do you do when you're bored? Um, I don't know. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I like to like you could teach a skill, you can't teach the behavior. I like to, or I can't teach behavior. I can teach the skill a lot easier and the way I want it done. But I like to handle interviews more like a conversation, like you mentioned, just to figure out their behavior, how they act, uh, how you guys work together, and corresponding with each other. I think that's so important. And a lot of times, like going back to the people you're hiring, this is probably their first interview in a lot of cases. So they're probably
Hmm.
nervous. So I would probably use
Hmm.
that first question as a throwaway question because they're kind of going to be so nervous. Like, what's your strengths and weaknesses? That will kind of freak them out a little bit. That After that, you kind of go into, I like to go into like, what type of food do you like? What do you like to cook on your days off? What's your favorite thing to do outside of work? Or just, I kind of find like three open-ended questions and ask that for every person that's applying, and basically see how their personality is basically, and if it would fit with everyone else.
And once you get a strong culture at the workplace, you'll find that the employees end up not fitting in the culture, kind of just leave because they don't feel like they fit in. I mean, that's what we noticed at Good Nature is when people are hired and then they kind of realize they don't really mesh with the culture, they just kind of leave. So it's like once you have good culture, it takes a long time to build strong culture, but once you have it,
Hmm.
it's easy to tell who's going to fit in, and if you're wrong, it's they can feel it, you can feel it. So culture goes a long way as well. Um, okay, let's talk about profit sharing slash bonuses and incentives. I've been thinking about this one a lot. Do you guys mind if I take this one first?
Go for it.
So I'm a big believer in incentives in business. If you show me someone that is either not performing up to what you expected or they're performing really well in an area, almost always it's because of how they're incentivized. And the way you want to think about incentives is you want to align incentives from the top down in the company so that all the employees have very clear direction and they align all the way up to the owner. So, as an owner, your primary personal incentive is to drive sales for the company and ultimately make a profit, right? I mean, we're talking about money incentives here. So, the managers under you you want to try to align their incentives with yours. So the managers that can directly control those types of things, you want to align with those incentives. Like if a manager can control the profitability of your business, I think it's fine to give them an incentive based on profit. But if they've no control over the profit, I wouldn't incentivize them on profit. I especially don't like the idea of profit share at a small business unless the employees have a direct way they can control if the company's profitable or not. Because if you think about like a low level employee, say someone that works at the counter, and you're like, hey, good news, everybody, we're going to start a profit sharing program. At the end of the month, if we're profitable, you get a little bit of money. And they're like, all right, that's cool, I guess. But then maybe they work hard all month. They see a bunch of sales come in. They're like, oh, we had a profitable month. But then as the owner, you're like, well, we would have, but I spent $30,000 on redoing the kitchen, so we actually lost money this month. Somebody gets any money, it's like they're gonna feel kind of weird. They have no control over it, so it's not going to make them work harder. It's not going to give them any direction on what they should be doing to get that bonus. So I don't think that's a good idea. Um, a great and very popular incentive structure is commission for salespeople, right? Because you think about what do you want a salesperson to focus on? You want them to focus on selling stuff. Okay, so how can they make more money? Well, they sell more stuff and they make more money. It's a very clear incentives. It makes them work harder. It gives them direction on what to focus on. So I think incentives are really important, but in my opinion, you should make sure if you're giving someone an incentive that it's something that gives them direction and they have direct control over. So maybe for the person working behind the counter, or maybe there's a group of people who say, hey, for anyone that sells a 3-day juice cleanse this month, you get a $20 bonus. That's a very clear incentive. It motivates them to sell juice cleanses. And at the end of the month, they get a check or a bonus for how many juice cleanses they sold. It feels good for them. You're giving them a pat on the back. Great job. Here's an extra $200 for selling 10 juice cleanses this month. So that's kind of my view on incentives. Just make sure they're aligned with what you want them to do and that they have direct control over it.
Yeah.
Katelin, you have anything to add on that?
I completely agree. I think at the stage that we're probably most of us, participating in this, are in that same boat where profit sharing at this size doesn't quite make sense, especially because most, if not all, of the employees don't have a direct ability to really affect profit at that level. So very tangible things from a sales perspective is what makes the most sense and will also drive the most success in that space. I personally like to do, again, just because it's like this business and this industry has so many hourly employees. It, is typically not a long tenured space. I'm grateful to have like a few employees that have been with me for a long time, but for the most part, like there's a good amount of turnover, or even like a year is a good amount of time. We're celebrating like, oh wow, this person's been with us for a year. That's great. But most are, college students, or they're about to embark on their, career they got their degree on. So we do quarterly one-on-ones with staff. I like to do more like individual goals for them as people, but also as, participants in our business, and that could be as small as like learning another arm of the business. And as I incentivize them to learn and grow in those spaces, I give them like actual hourly raises based on that and based on what they've accomplished and what they're contributing. And then that's motivating for them because they're like, every paycheck it's increased. Or I'll do spot bonuses here and there. Definitely in staff meetings, we have monthly, like X person sold the most here. But that also, cash flow is king for these types of businesses. So the raises for me versus like a big, large bonus or a large like incentive payout, that it helps cash flow over time. So month to month, they're just, these like small incremental things. So that's what we do.
Yeah. I like the bonuses for sure. Like, and I like breaking it down into different categories. Depending on your operation. If you have employees, kitchen manager, a juicer in the back that does all the production, cooking, based it off of food cost at the end of the quarter, hit certain goal is a very popular one to hit. So they're always thinking about, utilizing and waste and all that. Front of the house, the cleanses are amazing. Set something where you sell a certain amount of cleanses, you get this bonus at the end of the quarter. And even if you have like a general manager or a manager that oversees everything, you can kind of incorporate FTEs or how many employees on average for that month. But I think it's real important for the owner to set their goal, let the employees know about their goal, and then kind of have that in line so that the owner could achieve their goal at the end.
I'm going to do something real quick since someone mentioned Ari's volume sounds really low. I'm going to turn down the volume of Katelin and myself so that we're all more, hopefully, more around the same volume. So, everyone listening, you might have to turn up the audio a little bit just to compensate for this. Sorry about that. Okay.
My bad.
We tried for 10 minutes before the call to fix his volume. We
Yeah,
figured it out.
I'll get it fixed.
Also, I guess we forgot to mention a very important incentive, which is tips. Tips is like the ultimate perfect incentive, right? Because, well, I mean, theoretically, the better service someone provides, the more tips they get. At least that's how it started. These days, it's becoming a little egregious with the tipping, but I mean, tips are a perfect example of a good aligned tipping system for servers, which is like you want them to provide good service. If they provide good service, they get a bigger tip. Nowadays, it's a little different with the iPads and all that stuff, but um, I just think that is a good example of a good incentive.
Mhm.
All right, I guess we can move on. Does anybody in chat have any questions or anything to add on any of those? Let us know. We are here for you. Um, okay, let's move on to employee meals. Do you give employees free meals? Do you give them discounts? Do you cap the amount of discounts? Do you cap the amount of free meals? Um, how do we handle that? Ari, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, you got to. I I'm a strong believer in offering them a free meal. It's not only something that they got to be proud of the product that they're putting out. I think that goes a long way with offering free meals for employees. Uh, I know it's kind of a little easier for me to say because I'm not paying for everything. I'm not running the operation, but I'm a strong believer in giving out free meals for employees. I think it's really important to have a set standard though. And you work 8 hour shift. You know, for example, you work 8 hours, you get a juice and a smoothie bowl of their choice, you know, or if they work a 4 hour shift, they get a juice or smoothie. You know, definitely set rules to that. But I'm a strong believer in offering free meals or, you know, a popular thing in restaurants is family meal. If you're a large enough juice bar operation where you have a lot of different products coming in, uh, possibly test it out and see if someone's interested in actually testing new recipes and making family meal. It really kind of builds a community with all the employees. You know, when you actually sit down and able to eat together or try something that someone's made for them. You know, so I'm definitely team free meal for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's, you know, an incentive or a perk like a meal is actually, hits your books less than like a financial payout or bonus here and there. So
Mm,
like we always bring, so you just have to think of it that way too, right? Because then you're only paying the cost of the food at that point. Um, we bring in meals like at every staff meeting every monthly. We do like Friday lunches what we'll bring in for the staff. And I think, most of everybody, for us, everybody that works with us loves food. And it is such, a large part of what we do is like, breaking bread together. And that's what we're giving to our community. So I think it's so powerful to kind of break that bread together and share, even if it's like bring in pizza, which I know is not aligned exactly with the product we're serving, but everyone loves pizza. And it can be something small like that. And it's just such a good gesture. Uh, Absolutely employee meals, or we do like discounts on bottles of juice. For me too, that's another way for staff to get acquainted with all of the recipes, to really start to enjoy them, to sell them better, like front of house. If they're drinking, their celery juice they just bought on discount and they're drinking it in front, like it's just an advertising tool as well. So definitely, pronged and, multiple different ways. But I think that's very beneficial, and the staff should definitely reap the reward of, all their labor and everything that goes into it.
Yeah, we've had this discussion on the podcast before, and I think the general consensus was
Mhm.
whatever you do, just make it very clear what the policy is.
Mhm.
Don't just not have a policy and then get frustrated when you feel like people are taking too much free stuff or whatever. Just have a very clear, whether it's 30% off everything or one free meal a day or family meal. Just set the policy and make
Yeah,
sure everybody's clear on it.
we had to end up because anything that also like expires out, which we tend to not have a lot, but there are times, there are days. We have kind of this, well, we have a very firm policy. We used to have staff that would like think that they could just take it home with them for themselves and share it with their family and friends. So I think creating policies, again, setting expectations is super important, reminding them that the anything left over is not for their friends and family, and for also for if it's front of house that's dealing with that like expiring juice that's going out. It's They need to share the wealth with the back of house. They need to share with the entire team and let everybody know that there's product available. But being really clear is super important, regardless your size.
Um, okay, moving on. So I accidentally cut off the person's name on this one, but here's another one from Facebook. I'd love to generate discussion with how different people would handle this. A customer ordered 2 juice cleanses and other assorted juices last week for pickup in store. Ordered on Monday for pickup Thursday, and yes, it's prepaid in full. Thursday rolls around and the customer does not pick it up. We call about an hour before we close and no answer. Friday we call, no answer, but she calls back a few hours later, said she had an emergency with picking up that day. She does not pick up. Saturday afternoon, still not picked up, so we call again, no answer. At this point, the juice expires today/tomorrow. We have not heard from her. What would you do if she finally gets in contact and the juice has expired? And she edited to add, I do already have a policy in place as to how to. Actually, let's forget that. Let's just discuss how would you handle that. You want to take this one, Caitlin?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she did plenty of due diligence in terms of contacting. Having that policy in place is obviously critical. Uh, I think this is very layered. For me, if that was me, and this does happen, this just happened like last week. You can absolutely, if you're at a size where you can manage this, take it situation by situation. In those phone calls, you can definitely keep reminding them that this product is sitting here, and is going to expire. For us, we have multiple production days through the week. So if we're sensing something is sitting on the shelf and the customer's delayed their pickup or whatever it is, swap those juices out. I wouldn't just let them sit there. I would, swap them out for that fresh batch of greens that's coming out and sell that product. It's been sitting in your fridge. You should
Mm,
absolutely be able to do that. I wouldn't let it, just expire, and then tell that customer, no problem at all. Like, customers want to be told yes, they don't want to be told no. So it's our job to just massage that conversation and tell them like, no problem, we're happy to accommodate you. I am going to go ahead and swap these out so I can sell these juices so I don't have a loss, but happy to make you a fresh batch. We're going to be juicing tomorrow, and we'll just package up a new packet, a new cleanse for you, and then you can pick it up. It sounds like Friday's more convenient for you, pick it up then. um, versus taking on that for it's very frustrating. You're like, I spent all this time and we organize, and just try to remove that by diffusing slightly. um, but if it is a customer that's doing repeatedly, I think and I've had this with customers, like very honest conversations, this is, I'm losing money off of this. This is, hurting us. So let's come up with a different plan for your future orders. And you have that one-off conversation. Or if you have to, you just be a stickler and you stick to your policy. And sometimes it comes to that, but you have to make that choice as a business owner. Um, so probably multi-level, lots of ways you could approach that, especially she did her due diligence. So
Yeah, this is the number one reason why I always recommend having your juice cleanse match up with your juices that you're selling.
mm,
Don't
mhm.
create specialty juices just for your
Mm-mm.
cleanse versus that. You want to make it as easy as possible for a customer to spontaneously just order a cleanse, walk out the door. So I also love the idea of the pre-orders. So I would have kind of a disclaimer at the bottom, but it would just state you have 24 hours of the day to guarantee or confirm that we'll have everything in stock. And have that list for the employees or who's producing the juice, and they'll have it stored in the back for that 24 hours. If they don't pick it up in that time, then definitely move it out front with the rest of the juices, kind of cycle it through and let them know in that disclaimer basically, if you miss your pickup day, definitely charge once they pre-order it to get the cash.
Hmm.
And then if they're late that day, be sure to notify us and we'll try our best to make sure you get all those juices in that cleanse. Just kind of have them aware that they might not have everything in stock. This is just kind of an opportunity that we can kind of try our best to make sure we have everything available for when you're ready to pick it up.
So kind of like we'll hold it for X number of hours or something, but then we can't
Yeah.
guarantee it'll be available after that until you reschedule or something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Seems pretty good. Right. Let's see. Okay, rising prices. Let me find this question. This one's from Renee. Hello, everyone. Just like everyone else, I'm dealing with higher prices. Seems like everyone I pay bills to are unapologetically increasing their prices without ever having to ever deal with the end consumer. My accountant owns 5 restaurants. He said over half of the restaurants in the country are now charging back credit card fees. I'm a big fan of cash personally, so I like this option. Don't want a price increase, pay cash, but Square won't let me add a service charge for CC fees. Says it's not allowed. Has anyone here successfully added the fee with the Square system? Thanks. Ari, you want to give any feedback on this one first?
Yeah. I it's tough because I know Renee is in Fargo. I believe that's Juice Fargo, where it's really cold, and I imagine produce changes 6 months out of the year when
Mm.
it's really cold because she's sourcing produce. So it's a lot an issue a lot of people actually face probably. I would absolutely check my pricing first. Make sure I'm charging enough for everything, uh, just so that I don't need to make a price change to accommodate everything, the rising cost of produce, and then have to make adjustment again like a month later. So I would look at all my pricing and make sure I have that little bit of buffer in case prices go up slightly or down across the board. That's number one. And definitely I would probably lean towards having that credit card fee incorporated in the price that you're advertising. And then possibly, if they're coming in and paying cash, have a little sign and say, pay cash, you get a 3% discount or whatever discount they're
Hmm.
charging for that credit card fee.
How about you,
Yeah,
Kayla?
I use Square.
Mhm.
I use Square as well. I haven't attempt. I tried to actually. In prep or Charlie, because you sent all this to us. I tried to pop in and see if I could find anything on this in Square. Um, but I had that exact same thought, Ari, about some kind of small discount to avoid, that 3%. She's probably at 2.75% in processing. Um, and absolutely, yeah, it would be more a little bit more of like the root cause of why she's, feeling like she doesn't want to do a price increase. Does she need to do a price increase? It sounds like she probably has all that figured out, but I'm a big fan of price increases if it's necessary. I think it's actually really healthy for you as a business owner and a business, but it has to be necessary and you have to add value, and it has, that's a whole nother discussion. But um, yeah, we definitely build that in to pricing, and I think that's a really like valuable thing that's probably overlooked, and it's probably really good for everybody to take a step back and maybe, think about, because it certainly adds up.
Yeah. Um, I had posted a reply in the Facebook group. It's actually against the credit card terms of service to charge the credit card fee. I know lots of businesses do it, but it is technically against their terms of service, which is probably why Square doesn't allow it.
Hmm.
Like technically, if Visa finds out you're
Got it.
charging that, they can, I don't know if they close your account or suspend it or what, but um, yeah, everyone knows from hearing me on other episodes, I just hate add-on fees with a passion.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think raising the price and offering discount is a much better strategy. Um, So yeah, I totally agree. So Cheyenne has a question here. How do you build compliance into the culture of your business? And I clarified she means compliance with health department regulations, like following the guidelines and everything. Ari, do you want to give any feedback on this one?
Yeah. Well, compliance, first of all, you want to make sure you have a solid sanitation plan for your operation that outlines standard operating procedures for every task that you're going to be doing. Okay, almost like a light HACCP plan, okay, that has logs. And I kind of provide that for onboarding. Okay, I interview someone, they're a good fit. They start this day, and we kind of meet beforehand, and we go through that entire sanitation plan page by page, kind of explaining it to them, going over how to fill out each log, properly. And I also like to have an employee training log in there where they sign off that we went through every log, how to properly fill out everything. Okay. Logs are extremely important to make sure everything's being followed properly. You're putting out a safe product. So having them sign off that they were trained properly how to fill out that log, it's kind of giving them a sense of ownership that in case the health department comes in, they didn't fill out any of the logs, the person in charge didn't catch any of that. It's kind of like you signed off on it. You understood the process. You can't just say, no one showed me, no one taught me that. You have it signed off. So I'm kind of a little more strict on the sanitation side. So I kind of make sure I have SOPs for everything. You go through it, make sure that they can ask any question that they need, and they're comfortable with it. That's really what's important, is making sure they're comfortable with a process, and check in, daily, weekly, monthly, that they're filling out everything properly.
Have you anything to add, Caitlin?
Yeah, I totally agree. We do the same thing in house, and we also have these like check boxes next in every like training checklist, regardless of the position. And so we have like three or four that are actually built per position. So we make sure we kind of hit on all the things. It helps me in training know that I'm hitting every aspect that we need to, and same with our managers. And then we have just these like initial check boxes next to every category. So no matter if it's myself that trained that person or somebody else that trained it, we're initialing next to those sections to ensure compliance. And so we can go back for recourse and say, oh, you didn't, if they have questions or they're like, I wasn't trained properly in this, we can kind of go back and verify. But signing off on that training checklist gives a huge accountability portion. And then we look at that in their first kind of quarterly, once they've been onboarded, their first quarterly one-on-one, and say, okay, you've been fully onboarded, we've looked at everything, we can course correct, like looks like you're making nut milks incorrectly, let's go back to the training. It's like a great spot to be able to reference back to. Yeah, I totally agree, Ari.
And I don't know about anybody else, but when I went through the ServeSafe classes, I actually learned a lot, and went away feeling like I understood why some things are dangerous that I never knew. And I think actually understanding that why the rules are in place goes a long way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you don't just tell someone, oh, keep it at 35 degrees. You explain to them why, what the temperature danger zone is, what happens if it goes past, maybe really educating as to how we're keeping customers safe with these rules.
Mhm.
It
I
sounds
think that's
crazy,
so
but
important. Yeah, go ahead.
I I was just going to say, I think, just like I always say, we are not taught like personal finance enough in like, elementary or high
Yeah,
school.
at
I
all.
think, I think everybody should go through like a serve safe food safety course for just like home cooking.
Right.
I have,
Yeah.
I have family members that I won't mention because they'll listen to this podcast, but they will, they will like leave chicken out on the counter. And I'm like twitching on the side because we've done all this. It's just like how to safely defrost things would be a good thing for every American to know.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why it's so important
But it
too,
is.
as an
It's
as an owner to not be an expert in every single aspect of the operation, but have a good understanding of everything, because the
Mhm.
employees are going to come to you and ask questions, and you got to understand why. Like with the sanitation portion, if you're not 100% comfortable with it, become comfortable. Go out and take classes and opportunities to be able to understand the why behind it. And it comes off a little strict in the beginning, but I love the idea of just explaining it to them, like, we want to make sure you're comfortable and completely understand the process and why we're doing it, you know?
Got a question from Michelle here. I'm going to jump to her second question first and then go back. I think you may have answered this. Caitlin, do you use checklists for tasks? And if so, are they digital or paper?
We do paper. Well, actually, that's okay. We do something in the middle. I have a laminated checklist for most of our shifts, for the bulk of our shifts. That are the standard things that are going to happen every day. And then like deep cleaning checklists are laminated. And so we can just use Expo pens and then have like a manager's end of day report that way. Um, but there are a few that change so frequently, and the staff that use them like to make a lot of notes on them. Like our retail team, we're always highlighting what's going out that day and notes to the next staff member. So the retail one is in paper form, but I love a good checklist.
Yeah.
Seems like a common trait of good retail business operators is they love checklists and logs. Right, Ari?
It's
Yeah.
just so it's like it just lays out every, and I tell them like, if you do all of this, you've done your job. Like I'm not going to probably ask you to do much more than this. So if you won't hear from me if you do these things, which is like pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every sanitation plan I write has a daily checklist, just to touch on aspects of every standard operating procedure outside of the logs, But I think it's important to have. They have a lot of digital stuff now where they have kind of like a keypad with a thermometer attached where you can check product
Mm.
on the line. It'll buzz you every 4 hours to take the temperatures. It's a little
Wow.
expensive and you got to pay a subscription. So it's not always worth it. If you can get that, that's great. If not, I mean, you got to do the paper for sure.
All right. I'm going to shift into, I've got a couple menu recipe ingredient type questions here. Michelle's a question. Recently on Goodnature site, someone had posted about sea moss. Can you clarify, once it is rehydrated and less than frozen, it is a 7-day shelf life, correct? Whether to retail it or use it in smoothies. Ari?
So you want to determine, typically CMOS, it depends on how you make it. Okay. If you're doing the very basics of it, where it's water and the CMOS, you can get 2 weeks out of it because it's a dehydrated product and water. Okay, if it's stored properly. If you add certain ingredients, which a lot of people do, they'll add fresh produce like strawberries or mangoes. That takes it to 7 days. If you freeze it, you want to make sure you put a label on it, frozen on this date. Okay, as soon as that's thawed, then you have 7 days.
Okay. Very clear answer. Thank you, Ari. Um, Cheyenne asking, is there an average menu size? Okay, this is a big topic. We can do the 30-second version. But is there an average menu size we should strive to have, like set amount of signature juices and smoothies, only then allow to create your own? What's your recommendation? Caitlin, do you want to, so coming from someone that's planning a juice bar, what's your recommendation on menu size?
I would not recommend letting somebody create their own juice or smoothie personally.
Ari left
For-
that too.
but I mean, I guess it could work. The optimist in me wants to say it could work, but the business side of me says like that sounds like a no. I think less is more. I'm like a big proponent of less is more with good variety and acknowledging what your consumers want and maybe a little bit of what's trending and what people are looking for in the market space, or seasonality and all of that. But I have like 4 greens, one or two roots, two citrus, three shots, 2 to 3 nut milks. And then I do carry like 4 seasonal specials at a time, just because that's a huge seller. That's like a big part of our sales. Um, and coconut water. That's like for juices. And then smoothies. I have like couple greens, couple citrus, like tropical ones. Ones with nut milk or nut butter, excuse me, and then ones with like lower glycemic, no banana. That's a big request that we get. So we try to adapt to our clientele in that way. And then same with bowls. I think less is more.
I'll I'll keep my answer short. Okay. Coming from Katelin is a perfect example of like an exception to the rule. There's exceptions to everything. Like her operation is extremely seasonal, using the freshest product. She has like 50 recipes in a year, probably. I'm just guessing, but changing through, but you have that standard format of this category I need to fill, this category, and they change out. So it works great for your area and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think in general, the first question I always ask when someone says how large a menu is, what else are you serving and how large is your
Mm-hmm.
operation? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really important. If you're doing just juice, you would have to go a little higher. If you have juice, smoothies, bowls, all this stuff, you can go a little lower if you're in a tighter space. I think a minimum is 5 juices and a plant-based milk, so you can offer a cleanse. I think that
Yeah.
is the minimum. If you have a larger room and you're really juice focused, definitely expand that out. I like to make sure I have the the required juice range, basically from sweet to savory. I have a green juice range within that. The green juices are kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
range within a range, from your sweet greens to your pure vegetable green. And then outside of that green juice range, I like to have something that's higher in citrus for a starter for a cleanse, a carrot based one, a beet based one, and then make it unique to your operation. I recommend starting smaller if you're just opening and seeing what everyone's gravitating towards, and then expand based on what the people in your demographic are really liking. If they're really big into the pure vegetable blend, add some more green juices. If they like the starter one, then add some variations on that. So definitely start with the basics and then take your time on where you expand the options.
All right. We've got one last question here. We are running over an hour, so I'll take this as the last question. This is from Savannah. Curious about your communication style when someone isn't doing something sufficiently repeatedly, specifically cleaning and sanitizing. Caitlin, you want to start with this one?
Yeah. I would say you should have some type of recourse built in, whether it's like a write-up system or 3 strikes you're out, some kind of point, some structure of disciplinary action so that you have it there if you need it. We have that. I fortunately don't have to use it as much, but we do from time to time. And it is necessary to keep a good structured, accountability in the workplace. In terms of cleaning, I would say that would go probably directly back to the cleaning checklist we've discussed in that training. Do some good internal reflection. You, as an owner, operator, manager, did I train this person accurately enough? Come to them, and my communication to them would be, cleanliness is the most important thing in a raw or not raw juice space, a food, space. To ensure that we are not allowing any type of potential for bacteria in this space, and it must be kept clean. And these are our expectations as a business. Happy to train you if you have any questions. I would say like on and on. But if I don't see improvement by your next shift, unfortunately, I'm going to have to write you up. But yeah, we could probably go deeper into that. But that'd say like high level. That's how I'd approach it.
Progressive discipline. That's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Well, I mean,
Definitely,
it's pretty
you know,
simple.
it's a good idea to kind of if they're not cleaning everything properly, check to see if you have policies in place, or if you can put a policy in place that they might not be understanding, or we're unaware of. If it continues to happen, that's kind of when I go to the verbal, then the written, then it's not working out. So
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I guess we can wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Katelin, thanks again for coming. If anyone wants to follow Katelin, you can do that at JuiceCoLG on Instagram. Is there a dot in that name, or is it just JuiceCoLG?
Just that.
Okay.
Yep.
JuiceCoLG for JuiceCo Los Gatos. You can follow Katelin
Mhm.
there and follow her journey. She runs an awesome business. Thank you so much for coming on again, Katelin. We really appreciate your
thank you.
time. Chef Ari,
Anytime.
he's on Instagram at Chef Ari Sexner. And of course, you can follow Goodnature at Goodnature Pro. Thanks so much, everyone. And next time, I'll do a better job at pre-planning. I apologize. This notice went out today. It's been a hectic couple of weeks, but we'll put it on the calendar earlier this time and get everybody plenty of notice, so we can get
And you'll hear me. You'll hear
even
me
more
better.
people on next time. What's that, Ari?
You'll hear me better.
We'll hear 'em.
Oh yeah, we'll fix ours volume. Sorry about that
Just
technical
put on
issue.
closed captioning. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.